Welcome. You have found why we are Christians. In this episode, I, Katie Philpott, will be talking with my husband, Kent Philpott, via Skype, which is one of the many ways that we interview people on the show. We are going to be discussing why we do the show, how we do the show, where we do the show. So here we go. Hi, Kent.
Hi, Katie.
So you're at home right now,
I am indeed.
and we're going to discuss this burning question. Why are you making a program series entitled Why We Are Christians?
Stories of people are interesting. Every Christian has a story to tell. There was a process. Sometimes it was took a long time, sometimes it was short, but everybody has a story. Nobody's born a Christian, but somehow or another they become Christians, and almost every single story is different, and those stories are fascinating. So for a long time we've been doing television program, started in 1984 with the Bible study, still doing it today after all these years, 31 years now, and it seemed like it was time to launch out. We had some wonderful people in our little Miller Avenue church in Mill Valley that were willing to invest themselves, and two of them, the main ones besides yourself, Katie, are sitting in the control room working it right now, Carl Lohr and Jim Parker. And they
Yes.
set all of this up every time so faithfully. So we had the means, the internet, all of it was right there. Why not take advantage of it?
So, are you a professional videographer? Are you a studio production expert? Or are
No,
any of the rest of us?
no, I can't do anything. It's dangerous for me to get to a control room, and I can barely do the Bible study. But anyway, it's just something that I've always loved to do. The main thing is to be able to tell the story about how Jesus saves people. How
Oh,
it's the most incredible miracle. Um, most people would never decide to become a Christian, and they become shocked that they find that they are. And like I say, the story is everything. Now, there's another reason why we do this program. As Christians, Jesus told us to go out and proclaim the message of the cross and the resurrection and all the things that belong to Christianity. We are commanded to go and tell the story.
oh,
So
it
that's,
sounds like the Great Commission.
yeah, it's called the Great Commission. He said, go do it.
Okay,
And
now I want to ask you something.
yeah,
You made a statement right away about people are not born Christians. Can you discuss that in light of what you were just saying about people don't decide to become Christians either?
well, you can be born into, let's say, a Christian family or anything, any kind of family, merely by being born or being a member of a church, being baptized by proper authority. That's all good and fine, but the new birth, the born again experience, becoming a Christian, a follower of Jesus, is something where the individual is acted upon rather than they themselves become a Christian on the basis of performance. Most Christians, they would be surprised that if you had said you're going to be a Christian. Most religion is what we call orthopraxy. You practice, you do things, rituals and rites, various forms, and so on. And you do that, the proscriptions of whatever religion it is, and this makes you part of that religion. Christianity, on the other hand, is entirely different. You have to be joined to Christianity by the working of the Holy Spirit. You can join a church. You can be baptized. You can be regular in your attendance of a church. Those things, however right and good they are, do not make one a Christian. The new birth is usually a surprise to most people. So there's wonderful stories. Some people are converted when they're little kids, when they're teenagers, when they're 21 years old, like I was. Some when they're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I've seen it all in my 45 years of pastoring churches, all three of them in Marin County here in California. And no two stories are alike. Anyway,
Okay, so
that's what makes it interesting.
so we want to find interesting people to interview, and how do we go about doing that?
Well, it's fortunately we have known a lot of people, have asked a bunch of people that we feel might like to do it, and with few exceptions, people have. And one of the reasons why we're doing this tonight, frankly, Katie, is the person we had scheduled for the studio tonight could not show up, had car problem. We're going to get her later on, so we thought, what are we going to do? We're not going to cancel this beautiful time in the studio here at CMCM in San Rafael. So we thought about doing this, explaining why we're doing this program.
Okay.
So
and
Skype is a big deal, and we're hoping to broaden that. And one of the reasons why we're going on what's called PEG Media, we'll be able to be on stations all across the country, and people might see the program and say, I want to be on that program. I'm going to get a hold of these people. And of course, we always provide a way for them to do it at the end of the program. And we might find there's all kinds of people that would like to be interviewed. We've interviewed one of our dear friends, Sika Amados, in Togo. That's West Africa, on her cell phone. She held the cell phone, and we did a wonderful testimony from our dear friend Sika. So now with the Skype, we're practicing Skype really right now.
we are.
We can do interviews all over the world. A testimony, a story doesn't have to be dramatic. From a life of wild sin, crazy religious practices, whatever it was, whether it was a startling, dramatic testimony, those things are really immaterial. What I look for are people who have a degree of understanding of their own faith, what you might call a mature Christian, someone who has come to grips with the life of being a Christian. The metaphor of the new birth is very apropos here. When we're first converted, we know very little. We're like infants, and then we are rugrats, toddlers, grow up. We go through all the processes spiritually that a human being does physiologically. I like to find someone who is at the maturity level, let's say at least of a 15-year-old, who has some understanding about who they are, what happened to them, and can look back, has a past they can look back on, and maybe is involved in moving forward and talking about those kinds of things. It's not just a conversion testimony program.
Right.
It's about what happened as you go through, what's going on right now. We try to find people who speak clearly, who are passionate, who love Jesus, and that's what we're looking for.
Now, here's a question. You are a Baptist preacher. Are we only looking for Baptists, or are we going to be interviewing others? Talk about that.
Well, I like the term evangelical.
Okay.
Evangelical means good message or good messenger. And I don't care what denomination they are. They could be Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox. They could be any of the many Protestant groupings. It doesn't make any difference. The common denominator is a conversion story, how they became a Christian.
Is there a particular favorite question you like to ask your guest if you are the interviewer?
Well, I'm not so sure I have a good answer for that, Katie. Well, There's a number of them. I'm interested in a strong question is, when did you first hear about Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Second is, what was your reaction? Then, how is it that you became a Christian? I'd like to know, were you baptized? Being baptized is kind of a big deal to me. I love Michael Green's book, Evangelism in the Early Church, and he points out the early Christians, one of their ways of testifying was to be baptized. Well, then I like to know, what was the reaction? What happened? Did you lose a lot of friends? Did you get kicked out of whatever? Did you get new friends, lose old friends, go through a period of turmoil, trying to figure out what in the world you're doing now? You find yourself in many ways at cross purposes with the world that you'd fit in so comfortably. Then you also have your struggles with your own personal sin. We're all sinners. I didn't stop being a sinner when I became a Christian in 1963. That's an ongoing issue, always in every Christian's life. There are the various challenges. And then there are times when we talk about, well, what are you doing now? It's one of my favorite questions and really comprises the second half of our program. Sometimes they're just half-hour programs, sometimes they're 2 half-hour programs. But what happened next? What are you doing? People have ministries. They're doing something. They're serving Jesus. They're being followers of Jesus. They're doing stuff. And I'd like to talk about that. It's not a cookie cutter situation, is it?
No, it isn't.
Not at all, not even close. So many variations. I have to say, I love the stories of people who have been converted, like, for example, Jesus appearing to them. There are a whole bunch of people all over the world now who have experienced that. Somehow Jesus appears to them. I mean, right there.
That really segues nicely into talking about some of the things that you have been doing recently that could feed into this, because we have been involved with witnessing to Muslims. You have written and studied a lot about Islam lately, and we know that Christianity is not like in Islam where you simply repeat the Shahada, which you can probably remember what that is, and then that makes you a Muslim. It's completely different. And so can you weave in for us a little bit of what you're doing lately with your studies in Islam, and how we would like to dovetail that with interviewing perhaps more former Muslims who are now Christians?
Well, yes. We just published our new book called If Allah Wills, Inshallah, in Arabic. Very interesting. About a year ago, or maybe a little longer, although I've been writing on Islam since 2001, but it was different. All of a sudden I changed, almost like a conversion experience where God gave me a love for Muslim people. Very surprising, a love for Muslim people, very much like what happened to me in 1967 in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury. God gave me a love for people who were hippies, who were involved in the hate scene. And so that spent a number of years working with that and being involved in the Jesus People movement. Well, a similar thing happened. And I've been going to the local mosque, plan to be there for the big Ramadan, where everybody gets to come over and eat, break a fast in the evening. And I learned that I really enjoy Muslim people. And so, yes, there are a lot of people who have experienced one of the prophets of Islam, Jesus, in a very real and personal way. But that's one aspect. I think the greatest miracle in terms of testimony is someone who comes out of atheism or agnosticism. That's the real thing. I've often said, if I were not a Christian, I would definitely be an atheist. And I love talking to atheists, by the way. I think that's one of the most interesting things to do. My brother was an atheist. And for years and years and years, we debated atheism. I read Dawkins and uh, Hawking and just everybody that you. Sam Harris was one of my favorites, and so on. And I learned the ideas that atheists hold and understand. I understand why they do. Sometimes I am shocked when somebody becomes a Christian because it goes against all sensibilities in a way. The atheistic argument is a very strong one, but so I guess I have always been an evangelist, although a different kind of evangelist by writing books and personal testimonies and the television. I'm not exactly a Bible thumper pounding on the pulpit. I maybe have pounded on the pulpit a time or two, scared everybody. So I don't really do that much. But this programming reaches out to all kinds of people. There are two passages, Ecclesiastes 3:11, and a passage in Romans chapter 1, where it says God has essentially put the knowledge of Him in everybody that's made, every human being. There's a certain sense that we know there's something about the whole God thing, the whole creator thing, even though we may be, what we think are staunch atheists, still there's a part of us. And this program, Why We Are Christians, well, film, television. People don't read books so much anymore. And here we are, publishers, Earth and Vessel Publishing, all the books we publish, and we don't sell many books. And of course, we don't really care. We're both retired people on Social Security and our pensions and so on. And this gives us a wonderful opportunity to reach out to people who they may be atheists, they may be agnostic, they may be confused, they may be in Christian churches, but they're not born again, they're not really converted, and they know it, but they really don't know how to deal with it. They maybe have embraced another religion, and they find out that, wait a minute, I'm still hungry. My search for God, I haven't found it. I haven't found God. And so we're hoping that people will find Why We Are Christians on television and be able to contemplate, to think about, to pray about what they've heard. We can't reach to the television thing and make somebody a Christian, but we give a basic testimony about who Jesus is and what Jesus did on the cross, his death, taking our sin upon himself, his burial, his resurrection from the dead, his ascension into heaven, and the fact that he's coming back. There is a judgment. One of the things we share with Islam is judgment. One of the things they know, all Muslim people know, there is a judgment at the last day, which is the most important thing that will ever happen to anybody. We share that great thing, and we know that Jesus is the one who gives us eternal life.
Well, you have talked about atheists and agnostics becoming Christians. We've also talked about Muslims becoming Christians. I myself have a Jewish background, and I became a Christian. I interviewed Michelle Shelfer, who is also Jewish and became a Christian.
Atheism, agnosticism, those are both isms. Selfishism, me firstism, this world only ism, I have one life to live ism. Those are all isms. Everybody's someplace, somewhere.
Yes.
And one of the most interesting testimonies that a person can have is that they were just living for themselves. They were not in bad shape. They didn't go to prison. They weren't addicted to any substances or shopping or gambling, and they were just ordinary human beings, working, having a family. When shebang, boom, Christ comes into their life. They're converted. And those are the interesting stories.
Yes.
Those are, I want more of those. I love those stories.
So is it not as much fun then to interview someone who's been a Christian as long as they can remember into childhood?
Those are good too. They're all good because so many different forms and kinds of people out there. We'll eventually start running out of people that we know right around here in Marin County and the San Francisco Bay Area.
Well,
And
yes.
we'll be able to use, of course, we know people all over the country and in foreign countries that
Yes.
we'll want to, but we're looking forward to, in the years to come, the opportunity to, through Skype, be able to bring people's testimonies with backgrounds that we've never contemplated.
Right.
So it's wide open out there. Really looking forward to it.
Well, that would be like, once again, probably for the third time, we'll tell our viewers that we will give information at the end of the video, and we will tell them, therefore, how they can contact us if they feel like they have a life story of coming to Christ, and then a ministry that is exciting for them, and they want to get that out and excite other people by doing so. So we'll do that again.
One thing we need to say, no money is ever involved in this.
Oh, no, of course not.
Nobody's going to get any money for being on the program. None of us, not one single soul, gets paid a penny. There's no money that comes in. There's no donating to the program. None of that. We're not selling anything on the program. So none of that is involved. Nobody signs anything.
No.
That's it.
No. For anybody who is watching this, I think we might want to say that you too can make TV shows at your local community access station. We're here at the Community Media Center of Marin, and we are making this in their studio. And it has been quite a learning curve, but we would recommend that people who want to make shows like this actually go ahead and contact their local station and join it. And perhaps they have such a nice facility as we are enjoying here, and they'll be able to also make their own TV shows. It does not have to be, of course, of Christian content like we are making, but it could be anything that the local audience would like to see. So,
by the way, there is a learning curve. One of the things I like to say, maybe it's a little part of shows my neurosis, but I'm always a little worried. People think and get excited about something like this and think this is going to be pretty easy. We gave ourselves, when we started, a 2-year learning curve. We weren't even going to criticize ourselves for 2 years. And we've been doing this about 1 year. And we think we're on the way up on the learning curve, just a little bit going up here. We know there's a lot more to go.
yes.
Our programs are not sophisticated technologically. They're not fancy schmancy. We tried to do a Ken Burns effect once, couldn't figure it out. We're starting to drop in photographs that people will send us and so on. And what happens is people get discouraged easily when they find that there's more involved than they thought. So I'd just like to remind everybody that if you take up the challenge to start your own program, there is a learning curve that is part and parcel of this process.
Yes, do the KISS principle in the beginning. You've got to keep it simple and not try to do something too fancy. So as we have about 1.5 minutes left, I would like for you to simply speak a very straight gospel message to the audience. If you had 1.5 minutes to spend, what would you say?
First, the first truth that we really learn about anything, the first authentic spiritual truth, is that we have broken God's laws, God's commandments. That's why we have the 10 Commandments. Jesus said it was the actual work of the Holy Spirit to show us that. I spent 30 years as a volunteer at San Quentin Prison, 17 years the baseball coach, 13 years cell-to-cell ministry. People were often remorseful that they'd end up in prison. That's not the same as realizing that you sinned against a holy and righteous God who is the creator and made us in his image. That's the first truth we ever learned, that we have broken God's law. Second is that we cannot change that. There's nothing that we can do, nothing we can do to change that at all. However good we become, however pure we think we might be, however good we might be, however helpful toward others in the environment we might be, none of that really changes anything. That's the second thing. Then the third thing is we now have an interest in Jesus. And when an interest in Jesus, that means who he is, who Jesus really is, God in the flesh. God came to be with us. He didn't stay far away in a way we never are going to grasp. And by the way, no Christian understands the Trinity. No Christian understands that Jesus is God and man. Nobody knows, gets that. It's beyond our capacity. But the testimony of Old and New Testament alike, God became flesh, Emmanuel, God with us. Then we have the interest in Jesus, who he is, and an interest in what Jesus did. He took our sin upon himself at the cross, died, took all our sin. Only God can do this. God the Father laid all of our sin upon God the Son at the cross. He died, he was buried. He rose on the third day. He then later on ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father, from where he will come to judge the living and the dead. That is the core gospel message, all summed up in the Apostles' Creed, that all Christians, whatever branch they're in, adhere to and believe. That is the gospel message. But even just believing that, knowing that, does not produce the new birth or bring salvation. That is completely and totally the work of the Holy Spirit. All right, that's as close as I come.
That's as close as you come, and that was a good description of both the gospel and someone's conversion rolled into one. And now I will welcome us into the goodbye part of the segment. So you have been watching Why We Are Christians. We have been talking together, Katie Philpott with Kent Philpott, and we are the producers of the show, and we are hoping to see you here again next week. So long.